Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And what a wild weekend it was. The president giving a speech, Nancy Pelosi saying no before she heard the proposal. The government shutdown continues. How do we solve all these problems? Well, thankfully, we have our friend Lars Larson, who joins us every Monday at this time, working today like every day. Good morning, Lars.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Living the dream. Always great to have you on. Weeknights 6 to 9 right here on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. So your friend, your close associate, I know I have creative license sometimes, but you were in the White House. You have interviewed the president. He did compliment you on your voice, so you know him better than most of us here in Idaho.
Yeah.
He gave a speech on a Saturday.
Yep.
And you would think that the president would be at Mar-a-Lago the way the Democrats and the media have responded. But as you know, Lars, you're a hard worker. You're in working already, not just today, but every day at this time for your two shows. The president hasn't left the White House. He wants to end this crisis. He wants to save America.
I'll tell you something, too, that to add to that. I listened to the president's speech live. I then went back and reread it. I've watched a lot of the commentary over the weekend. There were literally people in the political realm from the other side who were rejecting his idea before he finished giving it. Now, Kevin, even in our personal interactions with coworkers and friends and all, if you have a friend who says, I have an idea, and he gets a few words out of his mouth and you say, nope, we're not doing that. And you reject it before you've even heard it, before you've even had a moment to think about it, probably gives an indication of where you're coming from. So the Democrats have said, nope, it's a non-starter. And what he's offering them is something the Democrats have been asking for a while. Not a permanent end to the DACA controversy, but a 3-year extension. Because I think the president believes that once he gets funding for the wall, and by the way, the funding he's asking for is for the wall. He's also got $800 million in the bill for what they call humanitarian relief, meaning dealing with all the people who show up uninvited at our borders and then create a humanitarian crisis because you've got little kids and parents and you can't house them in the same place. This is the policy of childhood separation that folks have been throwing at Trump, even though the same policy was in place under Obama. I mean, after all, as you and I have talked about before, in Boise, if the police in Boise have to arrest a parent or a pair of parents for any reason, and those people have children with them, they don't put the kids in jail with mom and dad. They take care of them. They hand them off to human resources people, human services people, and they have them cared for. I mean, what would the Boise police say if you say, well, when you pull over a car and it's got a couple of criminals in it, and it's a man and a woman, and they have children with them, do you put the kids in the jail cell with mom and dad? Of course not. So all of this is addressed in the president's proposal. And the Democrats have rejected it out of hand and said they will not negotiate. And Nancy Pelosi, as I understand, since she didn't get to go on her junket to Afghanistan, flew off to California. She wasn't working this weekend. The president was. And I thought his proposal went a long way. I'm not thrilled about the whole DACA situation. And people should understand, when you hear that phrase DACA, a lot of times Kevin and I will both use phrases to describe an idea that otherwise takes so much explanation you'd eat up the whole news story. But what happened was there were a lot of kids. The numbers may run as high as 1.5 million young people who were brought here to this country by their parents. They are foreign nationals. They're not Americans. They weren't born here. And that's another side issue, too. But these kids, say you were brought here when you're 4 years old, or say you were brought here when you were 16. DACA covers that entire category of people who are now adults, but they were brought here as children, and what the law says you have to do with those people is send them back to their home country, and then they can apply to come back in legally. Instead, we've allowed them to stay. And during Obama's time as president, he wanted the Congress to change the law. They would not, and that is the way we change laws. Whether you like it or not, that's the system for changing laws. Not to simply say ignore the law. What Obama did was he signed an executive order saying just ignore that law that's on the books and let these people stay. As I said, there may be as many as 1.5 million of them. Well, about 600,000 or 700,000 of them, the numbers vary, signed up for this DACA program. When it was renewed after Trump became president, when their renewals came up because they had to keep renewing their status, only 300,000 or 400,000 signed up for it. So even when we offered an opportunity to legally stay here, most of the DACA, the people who could be described as DACA, Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals, didn't even bother to sign up for the program. They're like, no, I'm staying here. I don't need to sign up for some program. But the president said, let's give them a 3-year extension of this, and we will work this out as we rework all of the laws that have to do with foreign nationals who've come into our country. But the courts have already decided that what Obama did was illegal, but they've said that since it's been in effect for a few years, we can't just, summarily end it and tell all the people under DACA, you now have to go home, even though that's exactly what the law says. So imagine this, a court decides that something that the previous president did was illegal when he did it, but it's created a situation that has a lot of human beings attached to it. So rather than simply say, well, too bad, we're sending you all home, they've been allowed to stay. There are some court cases that are likely to be decided this year that will decide whether or not the DACA program was legal or not, and may actually throw it out. So the Democrats have promised for a long time that they would propose to get something done about this. Trump just offered them a 3-year extension to say, let's just put this on the back burner, let these people go on with their lives. We will talk about how to resolve the whole problem. And their answer was no. And what's craziest about it, Kevin, and you and I have talked about this too, is the president is proposing a combination of fence and wall and let's just call it barrier. We already have a lot of Democrats who are saying, well, I'll vote for a barrier. They know they can't logically tell their constituents, we're not going to vote for it because the Democrats, have voted for it before. They have voted for proposals to put up more fence and wall and barrier on the southern border. So now their explanation, which I think falls pretty flat with most people, is I was for it when it was under Obama, but now that Trump is for it, I'm against it. I mean, imagine trying this at work. You've got an idea, you've told the boss you're in favor of the company doing this idea, and then a new manager comes in above you, and the boss comes to you and says, I assume you're still for this. And you go, no, I'm not for it, because my new boss, Joe, he likes it. So if he likes it, I hate it. Now, imagine how that would go over with your boss. So you like the idea, except you don't like who's proposing it, so therefore you hate the idea. This is a non-starter. And a lot of Democrat members of Congress, including some that were just newly elected in November, realize they're going to have one hell of a time when the TV cameras show up and reporters inevitably say, are you in favor of building some more barrier on the southern border? And they say, well, yeah, I am. Because if they say no, the next question is, well, why not? Well, because Donald Trump is proposing it. That's your reason for being against something? Like I've said before that if Donald Trump came out in favor of motherhood, apple pie, and puppies, the Democrats would start hating motherhood, apple pie, and puppies because it's a Donald Trump idea, which shows you just how low it's gone. I haven't yet seen the president say, I hate this idea because Nancy Pelosi is proposing. I hate it because Chuck Schumer is proposing it. But I have seen the Democrats do precisely that. And I think Americans should reject that idea. I mean, I'm not in favor of raising taxes. I'm not in favor, whether it's Jay Inslee of Washington State, Kate Brown of Oregon, Kamala Harris of California. I don't say, well, I'm in favor of raising taxes when it's Republicans doing it, but I'm against it when Democrats are doing it, because you and I would both be called out by our listeners saying, why is it you like this idea when it was a Republican pitching it, and now you hate it because it's a Democrat? I try to at least stay consistent on those issues.
Lars, we've got an abbreviated segment, so what do you look at? What should we be looking out for this week, sir?
Well, we should be looking out for continuing fallout over that. You're going to see a lot more stories about starving federal employees, which is a load of Bernie Sanders as far as I'm concerned. And I'll tell you why. I went over a lot of this Friday, but we have banks and credit unions throughout the country that have said to these federal workers, all you need to do is call us up. We will give you a zero-interest loan. And if somebody says, well, hold on, I'm supposed to borrow the same amount I would have got my paycheck for the next few weeks or months, however long it takes to resolve this. Remember, it could be resolved tomorrow morning if Nancy Pelosi would just walk over to the White House and do it. And it could be resolved in a way that gives the Democrats some of what they want and Donald Trump some of what he wants, what the American people want. But all of these banks and credit unions have said, we'll give you a loan. And to the worker, it would work out this way. Let's say a worker listening to your show right now is a federal worker who's not getting a paycheck right now, and he normally gets $1,500 every 2 weeks after taxes. It goes in his account. So the bank loans him $1,500 at zero interest for the next 6 weeks or 6 months, however long this takes. And at the end of that, he gets a big check for back pay. The Congress has already passed the bill. The president's already signed it. All these folks, even the ones that didn't work, get a check for the back pay for the work they didn't do, but they still get paid for it. When that check comes in, the loan is paid off. No harm, no foul. But you're going to see, and I'll bet there are even stations in Boise saying, oh, my God, it's been a week since they missed a paycheck. We've got starving workers. They can't pay their bills. They can't feed their families. This is a load of baloney, and I encourage you, if you get a call from somebody like that this morning, ask them, have you thought about taking one of these zero-interest loans that'll be entirely paid for when you get your back pay check in a few weeks or a few months, whenever this is over? And ask them that. And don't take a halfway answer for it. Demand that they tell you, if you're going to claim to be starving and impoverished and you're missing your mortgage payments, have you looked at this? Because there are a lot of the federal credit unions that are offering it. There are a lot of the commercial banks that are offering it. And I even had somebody criticize U.S. Bank as one of the ones that's doing a low-interest loan. They said, well, low interest, that'll still cost you money. Let me run the numbers out for you. If you were to borrow $10,000 at, say, 3%, the low-interest loan, and you borrowed it for an entire year, say the shutdown goes for a year, and you've borrowed $10,000 to cover you for the paychecks you missed. At the end of the year, when all that is paid off, you'll owe $300. So if it goes on for a year, borrowing the money will have cost you $30 a month or $15 a pay period, $1 a day. Have somebody tell you that they can't afford $1 a day to borrow $10,000 from the bank, knowing that it will all be paid off when they get the back paycheck. And tell the local TV stations and the local newspaper to stop running stories suggesting that federal workers are starving to death.
Lars, we appreciate you. We'll catch you tonight at 6. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kevin. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye. Our great friend Lars Larson joining us right here on KIDO Talk Radio. Coming up next, we'll talk to Linda and Congressman Fulcher. Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And joining us now, Congressman Russ Fulcher. Congressman Fulcher, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Kevin, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, your first speech on the House floor, speaking about the value of life, take us through that.
You know, there's no more noble cause. And, of course, the timing was during the Sanctity of Life week. And that's it. There's a different attitude towards that in Washington, D.C. as there is in Idaho, as you might imagine. But I will tell you, one of the most exciting things about that week was not the speech. I mean, that was my way of communicating what I believe and why it's so important to me and what I believe we should do as a body on that issue. But more importantly was the certainly tens of thousands, Kevin, if not 100,000 people on the Capitol Mall on that last Friday, for the Sanctity of Life celebration. I was one of the members on the stage, and as we're speaking out, literally as far as the eye could see, there is just a sea, and I do mean a sea, S-E-A, of people. I have never been part of anything like that in my life. And that didn't get a lot of media, at least back east.
Our great friend, Congressman Russ Fulcher, joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. So are you getting your feet about you there? You're getting your feet on the ground there? What's it like? Again, you've worked in the private sector. You've worked in state government. You're an entrepreneur, and now you're a member of Congress. What's it like going to the office every day? Take us inside your world, please, sir.
Kevin, thank you. It's for me, it's been a reasonably expected transition. I mean, I knew going in that there was the pace was going to be increased significantly. There's a lot of a lot of demand on your time and attention, but I chose to staff accordingly. And the people that I wrapped around me are they're excellent. They're just good people. And they're also, they've got the personal capacity, they've got the bandwidth in order to do this job. And so, we haven't been perfect. We've had a misfire here or there, but for the most part, the team is up in place. We're doing constituent service in Coeur d'Alene, Lewiston, Meridian, and then we've got the Washington D.C. team that's fielding media and preparing me for the issues of the day and doing the homework and the legislative background. And so it's a fast-paced deal. I know that you get a chance to visit a time or two throughout the year, and I'm hoping that maybe you can stick around and just maybe shadow for a period of time. And it'll run your wheels off, but it's a good thing, and we're ready and we're working it hard.
We all know you, Russ Fulcher. We all respect you, and you are so humble. But going on the House floor for your first speech, and we covered the content of it, but did you just catch yourself for a moment? I know, people love the fact that your mom was in the commercial and such, and your family is so strong. Did you just take a moment and say, here I am from Idaho, representing all the people that either voted for me or didn't vote for me, and I'm on the House floor? Just a solemn moment in your life representing all of us.
Well, I wasn't going to go into that, but to be perfectly honest, if you look really close, my eyes were just a little bit wet.
Yeah,
and that was a function of the subject matter and exactly what you just said. Abraham Lincoln was on that floor. And not that there aren't people that have had impact other than him, but that just gives you an idea about the timeline and just the place that I'm standing in. But the fact that when I say those words, that I basically am in a republic, I am people of Idaho. I'm 900,000 people are representing them. It does have an impact, and also that so few people ever have an opportunity to do it. We're talking less than 12,000 people over the course of history, and technically speaking, not just for your district, but for the entire nation, which is 325 million. And so when some of these shenanigans take place, like happened on the floor last week, you may or may not have heard of, when some people act the way they do towards one another, it saddens me a little bit, because I think the responsibility goes deeper than that, and tremendous honor, and I appreciate you bringing that up and giving me an opportunity just to talk about it for a minute.
Well, Congressman Fulcher, it's because of just the way that everybody knows you, and people that we listen to you on the radio, we feel you know you, and you're with us every step of the way. So you're at ground zero of the shutdown. What's going on with the Republican minority?
We did a conference call, I guess it was day before yesterday. Now everything's kind of a blur with our conference and with the president, and he had with him the director of ICE, and there was another individual director for Homeland Security. And we also got our own briefing with a separate team privately in a separate room. And Kevin, that truly is a crisis, more than the media, any part of the media has let people know. And what we're dealing with really, there's of course the immigration component, under what circumstances do people come into the country, but even more than that is what do we do with the tens of thousands of people that are currently stopped and at that border today. There's 5,000 children per day that are unaccompanied that are showing up at that border. And from a humanitarian standpoint, how do you deal with that? How do you take care of their medical needs? Make sure they have food. There's 25,000 single people a day. There's 30,000 family members at family units a day. And so these states that are border states in the South, are absolutely overwhelmed. The drug trafficking has increased multiple times over the last 2 years, and it's mainly through 2 or 3 corridors that they're catching them. And so what we've got it truly is a crisis. I believe that, and I've seen the data. I've been invited to do a Border Patrol trip. I haven't done that yet, but I intend on doing that. And so, having said that, I do think there's some headway. With the conference call, the president did outline a couple of compromise moves. I'm not totally thrilled with them, but I do think there's some traction, and I think this will get ironed out sooner rather than later.
Congressman Fulcher, one last question for you. What do you want to say directly to the people listening to you right now on the program?
It's an honor, Kevin, and I do not take it lightly. And when you're in a situation like this, it's easy to sometimes take it for granted. It's easy to start trying to just use your own personal resources when you're making a decision or you're trying to act. But I want this constituency to know, to the extent I've got human capacity, it's with appropriate counsel. It's with the value systems and with the counsel of the constituents themselves in mind. And I'm going to represent this state, I believe, in conjunction with the will of the people, and that's what I believe we're doing right now. And this is by no means is this some kind of a vacation. I mean, we're working it, and we're working it hard, and we're going to continue to do that as long as we're in this office.
Congressman Fulcher, we appreciate you, and we're all very proud of you, and thank you for making yourself available, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk, and I'm going to do that anytime, and I appreciate what you do, Kevin. What we do is you give some of us a voice to be able to communicate what is really happening, and I hope I had a chance to at least be accurate with that today.
No, it was great. It was great seeing you on the floor of the House. You're representing all of us. Have a blessed day and safe travel, sir.
Thank you, Kevin. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Our friend Congressman Fulcher joining us. Traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work.
7 Eric Gabbard.
And let's find out what's happening in your world. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Kevin.
And out to the White House, John Decker joining us exclusively here in the Treasure Valley on KIDO Talk Radio. So, John, I caught your live shot over the weekend on Saturday. You look good on TV.
Oh, thanks a lot. Yeah, commenting on the president's proposal that he introduced on Saturday to try to bring an end to the government shutdown, and from his perspective, trying to get money for that border wall with Mexico. I'm glad you're watching Fox on the weekend. Nice to hear that, Kevin. And I've been doing a lot of those lately for Fox News Channel, which is a nice thing. And we'll see what happens as it relates to the proposal. You know, right now we know that there are no new meetings scheduled between the president and congressional leaders today. It's a federal holiday, or for that matter, any time this week, Kevin. So we're in day 31, and it looks like we're going to head into day 32 tomorrow.
Indeed. How unusual was it for the president to give a speech on Saturday with a proposal? And, you know, as Arthel Neville was asking you, John, on Fox Television, you know, you already had the reaction from the Democrats literally even before he gave the speech.
Well, that's right. So essentially the reaction from Democrats, dead on arrival, this proposal the president put forward. Why? Because, A, they say they want to have the government reopen before they'll talk to the president, and B, they say that this is not a satisfactory fix for those 800,000 or so DACA recipients, those so-called dreamers. A temporary fix is not going to cut it for Democrats. They want not only a permanent fix, they want a path to citizenship for these 800,000 individuals. And so far, the president has not offered up anything like that. Perhaps he will as these negotiations continue. But right now, they continue to be very far apart.
Indeed. John Decker joining us, Fox News Radio, live from the White House here on KIDO Talk Radio. John, what's the reaction? I mean, the president has put this proposal through. As you said, the Senate will take a look at it. The House saying, not so fast, my friend. What do you think is going to cause the impasse to break?
Well, it's a good question. So Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says that he'll take up legislation that the president spoke about on Saturday. I don't think it's going to get the 60 votes needed to move that legislation forward, so that's going to be problematic. And as we heard from the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, she's not even going to take it up. So where does that leave us? Well, I think one of two things has to happen. One is that the president needs to meet with congressional leaders, including Pelosi and Schumer, to try to find some sort of way to end this impasse. And if that doesn't work, I think the president in his back pocket can declare a national emergency. I think it's going to be challenged in the federal courts, but at least it brings an end to the impasse in the short term.
John, we always appreciate you. Thank you very much. And I'm going to be a regular watcher on the weekends. I mean, you're always working.
All right. That's right. Thanks a lot, Kevin. Have a great day. I'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you, sir. Take care. Linda in Caldwell, thanks for your patience. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Thank you, Kevin. As I've been listening to you over the last year or so, some things go through my mind regularly that I would like to address. And one is about the liberal communism that's invading our country and our capital. The other night we saw Mark Levine interview someone, and this morning I heard your kind of off-the-cuff speaker talking about how the Silicon Valley is the power behind the throne. And Mark Levine and this man were talking about how much Silicon Valley interfered with the last election, and they were talking about that it was almost to the same grand state as the Russians had done. And the guest that Levine had on said that we had better be careful and we better start fighting this and addressing their influence over America, because if we didn't, that in a couple of years we might wake up and just find ourselves a communist country. And it would have been an undermining of the people that own the big time, like Google and all of that they would have interfered by doing the same thing as the Russians. And so I don't know how many people watch Mark Levin, but I've sure seen a lot of really good things on that. And so I wanted to say also, I'm an old woman. I'm almost 80. And I can remember when I was in high school and going to school that they cautioned us a lot that if we wanted to know the future and how to live, that we ought to study the past and the history. And I can remember whenever a lot of communist regimes were coming into Africa, and the Christians were asking us to donate money for food to stop the starvation and, bolster the people. And so we were sending money and we were sending provisions, even coats and different things like that over there for those people. And the food in big bags from America were sitting on the docks and rotting. And that made such an impression to my mind that we couldn't even get the help through the communists to the people. And, we got a lot of people that think they know everything that have come into Washington right now, and they want to spend our money on communistic endeavors. But it will never get back to the people. And the people that are following them have not thought about history. They've not thought about what communism has done to other countries. And they've not remembered the pictures on TV of families huddled around one light bulb and all of them living in one room in Russia because of the communists. We need to learn from the past. And then I wanted to say something about the prison. We visit regularly at the prison a young man that we started visiting 20 years ago. And we have kind of made him our kid, and we go out and we visit, and we get to know the people that are visiting there, and we see the different things that are happening. And our prisons are overcrowded, and they're having a hard time keeping enough guards and enough people employed there to take care of the situation that they have. So I am against changing your gender by surgery through the prison system, because I feel like that we can't adequately do what we need to do for what the prisons that we already have. We're bundling up huge numbers, hundreds of men at a time, and sending them to places like Colorado to put our men in prison in other prisons in Colorado and in Texas and places like that. How much money is being spent by Idaho? We really have no money.
Well, and you know, Linda, we just had a governor's race and a legislative race that was supposed to take care of that. So your message to the people in power on their way in, when they're getting their lattes at Thomas Hammer and on Bannock, what would you say to them?
Well, I would say to them that we need to clean up our own home first. It's kind of like trying to run the government. And we sent a man, Russ Fulcher, that is completely capable of going and telling them how to run the government. I depend on my husband to run the home. We depend upon our newly elected people to run our prisons. And we need to start with the basics. We need to have a balance. We have a balanced government. I'm so proud of Idaho for that. And we need to balance the money in the prison systems and see if there's anything left over to do something like that. But right now, what we see when we go out to the prison is a lot of need.
All
And
right.
I'm not talking about one person at a time. I'm talking about more guards, more safety.
Well,
you know,
that is
been lost.
right.
We had
That
a man
is
killed out there.
yes, Linda. I got to run, but thank you. Max, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller.
Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Max.
I want to plead ignorance on how Washington runs. Is Nancy Pelosi the single and only voice of the United States Congress?
Apparently, according to the press, she is, yes.
Because I'm wondering, okay, how many congressmen? 300 plus, right?
Oh, at least, yes.
Okay. And why can't our president lobby among congressmen? No, you know, go around Nancy Pelosi. Surely we cannot have so many congressmen that are as hard-nosed and communist and I want it my way as Pelosi. We can't. I don't see we could have that many. God, I hope not. If not, this country's in real trouble.
Well, we're going to see how it all plays out, Max.
Well, I would like to see if the president could somehow put his people to work and see if he could undermine her. Get up under the. She is the mud on top, and you got to get up underneath it. Get real people to look at real problems. What Congressman Fulcher said about the crisis being worse than the media is telling us is true. Even the conservative media doesn't have a grasp of just how bad it is. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a farmer in McAllen, Texas, and he can't even run cattle on half of his land because of the large number of illegal aliens, not immigrants, that he said storm across there on a regular basis. They sit up at night and just count them as they go through his land, and there's nothing he can do about it.
Well, and it's not getting reported. I totally agree with you on that. We've been covering this for years, as you know.
Let's call him John because he's scared to death to have his name used.
Sure.
He said that he's had to have his doors armored. He's had to buy dogs, and he keeps a gun by the window. They live their life. They get by. In the daytime, it's not so bad. He said at night they've had a house break-in, property break-in, maybe, he says, 100 times. And the local sheriff told him Do not fire if they break into your property. You can't do that. Let them go, or you'll be in jail, because the public views them as asylum-seeking immigrants when, in fact, they are alien invaders.
Well, and you bring up a great point, and we can thank former President Obama for this, because what he did was, you remember when he gave cards to the folks during his presidency, where he said, no, you're not coming into the country illegally. You are seeking asylum. He used that loophole, and that's what the president is seeking to shut down, because not everybody is seeking political asylum. Not everybody is persecuted, but everybody wants the free ride. I was watching, I think it was NBC News. They were interviewing a mother, 22 years old, who was raped in Honduras, has 3 kids, and she and her 3 kids traveled somehow, miraculously, up to the border, and she's not being let into America. She can't go back to Honduras. Now, Max, let me apologize in advance for being insensitive, but just because a crime happens to you in one country, that doesn't mean that you come all the way up here. I mean, unfortunately, those things happen everywhere, including America. You don't have people in America fleeing this country because they're victims of crime going to Honduras.
Yeah, and we don't have Detroit storming over the borders into Canada. Good fences make good neighbors. Remember that?
I live by that one, yes.
Well, anyway, listen, you're doing a good job up there. That technical boo-boos that make your station mess up at night.
Yes.
Had a nice talk with your producer.
Okay.
You guys have got a challenge on your hands. That does occur, I'd say, easily 50, 60 times a week. It's predictable.
Well, thank you for reminding us of that.
Other than that, by the way, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. This is the first time in a year and a half you've responded to an email of any kind.
Well,
maybe we can do an Idaho Insights on that book. Let me know.
Yes, I will.
You take good care of yourself. I'll keep on listening. Oh, listen, the only time I listen to the other station
let's okay.
is Rush Limbaugh. Okay?
All right. Thank you, Max.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Where do we go from here? That's a very good question. More on the shutdown. Don't forget Glenn Beck today at 9. Kevin Miller on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. 8:55, Kevin Miller in the morning. There are so many great stories in the Treasure Valley. And as we start the new year, our job is to highlight some of them. And this is probably one of the best kept secrets, is a writer for Sports Illustrated, Andy Benoit, who everybody knows and has followed his work. Just a great article on the Super Bowl matchup, but a local angle. Here you have Andy, who has come up through the school system here, has stayed in the Treasure Valley, does a really great job. Of course, our thoughts and prayers go to his family. We appreciate Andy and always remember his sister, and covering that story for many, many years, the tragedy out of the University of Idaho. But big ups to Andy Benoit. Just again, the more I'm here, the more we learn about just the talent that we have here. The secret is getting out. I just want to give him some props today and his family. Just a tremendous job on the article in today's Sports Illustrated concerning the Patriots versus the Rams. But I digress. We're not really a sports show. We talk about the issues that matter. So let's get you to work safely and on time. Back to the phones. Pro-Life, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, Pro-Life.
Yeah, the only solution that right now that I can see is that the president needs to just quietly move all the military clear across the border so that nobody can cross, and then just tell all of the Border Patrol people that they're not going to accept any more amnesty. You have to apply within your own consulate, your own nation, and then just shut it all off like that, and then get tough on all the people that are here illegally and send them back.
We'll talk more about that, but how was the March for Life this weekend?
Well, it was good, and guess what? Russ Fulcher was the only elected official that I saw there. And good for him. He said some things, and that was pretty sad. In Channel 6 and 9 and 2, they weren't there, just Channel 7.
Wow.
And they even Channel 7 gave a little bit shorter time than they did to us than the Women's March. And the women's people, they are totally out of it. Some people saw a sign, on television. A white woman held a sign that said, "White genocide now." Can you believe that somebody would hold a sign like that and not get thrown out of a parade?
In Boise.
No, that was nationally.
Oh, nationally. Well, what do you expect? Pro-Life,
Yeah.
God bless. I've got to run.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Glenn Beck is next. Ray Amaya, outstanding job. God bless everybody, and keep the faith.